Okay, cool. All right, photographing the entire scene. That includes photographing the outside of the crime scene. We said before we actually work from outside in. So before we actually photograph the interior of the scene, we're actually going to photograph the exterior first. Let's talk about photographing a house. If my crime scene is a house, I'm going to start by photographing the front of the house, typically from the driveway. Typically at a distance of about 75 to 100 feet away, so I can capture the entire front of the home. All right. I'm going to make sure I take a close-up photo of the number on the house, so the house number. So, it's 108 north, 108, 306 south, whatever. Start from the driveway. And then what you're going to do is you're going to photograph from the front of the house, not just the front of the house, but all of the front, meaning the landscaping. What is the condition of the landscaping? Photograph any entryways to the front of the house, doors and windows. Then work your way around the house. And here's the thing. I like to work always counterclockwise. So I typically work to my left. That doesn't mean that's the right answer. It's just what I do. So whatever you choose to do, be consistent. So for me, just to be consistent, I almost always work counterclockwise. I work to my left. So if I was photographing the front of the house, what I would do next is I would work my way to the left of the house, to my left. And so I photograph that side of the house. Again, same things. I'm photographing the house. I'm photographing the entryways, doors and windows. I'm photographing the landscaping. What do I do next? I work my way to the back of the house. Same thing. Work my way around to the other side until I get back to the front.
So are these all photos that you're trying to take at 75 to 100 feet?
No, the first one's 75 to 100 feet. You can, if necessary, take photos that are zoomed in or zoomed out as necessary to take details. But you're just trying to get a good overview. Now, what happens if you come across a piece of evidence as you're photographing the outside of the house? What if you find a footprint on the ground? Well, now we're going to photograph it as a piece of evidence. And we know, at least right now, we're going to photograph it how many times? At least 3. Long range, medium range, close. We're going to talk more about that in a second. So as we're photographing, if we come across items, we now need to photograph those as part of our overview. These first photos I'm talking about are just overview photos, but if we come across a piece of evidence while doing overview photos, then we can photograph it.
So do you carry a number or something?
Markers, I have markers with me, and also, typically as I'm doing these photos, the detective, remember I said before, I'm the first person on scene, but who's right there in my hip pocket? The detective, who will have those markers. So photograph the entire exterior before we move inside. We talked about photographing the street signs. We talked about photographing up and down the street. If there are cars parked in front of the house, you should be doing things like photographing the license plates of those cars, maybe the VIN numbers as well. So if we have potential witnesses if we can track down the owners of those cars. All right, photographing items of evidence. Before you write this down, let's just talk about photographing areas. So once we photograph the exterior of the home, we're now going to be moving inside the house. We're going to start by photographing the entryway. So again, we have this opening here. Let's imagine that this is the front door of the house. Okay? So once I photograph the outside of the house, I'm now ready to photograph the entryway. I typically want to take a photograph from about 5 to 10 feet away showing the entryway. Then what I want to do is take a good hard look at the entryway. Is there any evidence here? Are there any signs of forced entry? Broken glass, pry marks, broken door frames. Are there any obvious fingerprints? Any obvious trace evidence, blood? And if I see any of those things, I need to photograph them. Once I photograph those, I can now begin to move into the home. And as I begin to move into the home, I photograph the first room I move into. All right. So I open up the door, and what I do now is I take a series of photographs from the doorway looking in. All right. Again, don't worry about the writing what's on this yet. I'm going to use this that I'm talking about now. This sequence is important. Don't write what's on the board down yet. Listen to the sequence first. Photograph the doorway, 5 to 10 feet away. Photograph anything relevant on the doorway. Open up the door. Standing in the doorway, we're going to take a series of photographs. What does this area look like from the entryway? Next, I'm going to photograph the area. I'm going to do overview photos. If it's a room, we're going to use a technique called four cornering. four cornering, which is called four cornering because I'm going to take photos from all four corners. So what I would do then is I'm going to move from the entryway to the corner closest to the entryway. So if we imagine that there is a doorway here, and then we have the corner here, I'm going to move and stand in the corner, and I'm going to take a series of photographs of this room from this vantage point. Now, how many photographs do I have to take from this vantage point? It depends largely on the size of the room. If it's a small room like a bedroom, I could probably take one or two. Keep in mind, I need to photograph from this vantage point the roof, the ceiling, the walls, and the floor. So if it's a small room, I could probably get all of those in one picture. But if it's a really tall room, like this classroom is 15 feet tall. If I take a photo of that wall, I'm not going to get what's on the ceiling. So I'm going to have to probably take photos looking down, this way, and this way. I might actually have to take photos, 3 or 4 photos from this spot, maybe 5 or 6. Once I've taken photos from this location, I need to move to the next corner. Again, my technique is I always work to my left or I always work counterclockwise. So that means I'm going to move now along the edge of the room, and from this corner, I'm going to take a series of photos. So what does the room look like from this vantage point? Again, 4, 5 photos maybe. Again, it depends on the size of the room. If it's a small walk-in closet, 1 photo. I then move to the next corner. I take a series of photos from this vantage point. By the way, right now I've got evidence markers down. They wouldn't be down yet. Right? I would be photographing the room in its original condition at this point. Then I would move to this corner. I would take a series of photos, and then I would go back to the entryway. At this point, I would turn to the detective, and I would say to the detective, looking in the room here, what do you think you're going to collect? What evidence items do you see that you're going to want to collect? In which case, I would give him or her evidence markers, and they would then place those evidence markers down next to the items that they know that they're going to collect. Once they place the evidence items down, the markers down, now I know specifically what they want me to take pictures of. Now in this room we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different evidence items that the detective put down those markers. Of the 6, which one do I photograph first? Alright, that's correct. Remember, we always work from outside in, and we're going to take photos of the thing that is first closest to us. Alright? So we have a cartridge case way on the other side of the room. I'm not going to immediately run over there. I take photos of the things closest to me first. And remember, here's another important point. A lot of the items in this room are on the ground, but not all of them. We have a bloodstain on the wall. So this priority is also important to remember. Photograph everything on the floor first. Floor first. Anything on the floor gets photographed first. Because it's the most risk for getting trampled on, kicked, or contaminated in some way. Then I'm going to photograph anything that's on the walls. Then I'm going to photograph anything that happens to be on the ceiling. There might be a bullet hole or some blood on the ceiling. That I'm going to photograph last. So again, floor first, starting with the objects closest to me, then things on the walls, then things on the ceiling. Now the good thing about the items on the floor, there are a lot of items on the floor. I've already four-cornered the room, so I've already captured photos showing the relative location of those items. So the good thing is, once I photograph items, like for example the gun that's right here on the ground, and remember when I photograph an item, how many photographs do I take at a minimum? At least 3. What's the first photo I take? Long range. Typically somewhere between 10 to 20 feet away. So I'm going to back up, and I'm going to take a photo of the gun, right? And what's that photo meant to show? Its location. Where is it within the room? So I take my long range photo first. I get as far back as I can, right? If it's a small room, I can't get 20 feet away, but I get as far back as I can. If I need to zoom out in order to be able to show where it is in the room, that's fine. I'll do that. Take a long range photo. Now I move a little closer. Mid-range photo, 5 to 10 feet away. Take a photo. Now I need to take at least one close-up. So now I'm going to, if it's on the floor, I'm going to take the photo straight down. Remember, it should be perpendicular to. So straight down. Take a photo. Now, this is a weapon. I need to take at least one more close-up because I need to do what? I need to grab my scale. Exactly right. I need my scale. And I'm going to lay it right down next to the weapon so it's in the photo. And I'm going to take another photo. Now, the good thing is, now that we've photographed the gun, I can move on to the next object. But who can come in behind me? The next person collecting the evidence. It might be the detective. So that now that I photographed it, the detective can now collect that gun, put it in an evidence package, mark it, and then now it's out of the way. It's no longer going to be damaged or contaminated. Now I move on to the next object. Once I photograph that, it can be collected. If we do it in that way, if we work our way from outside in, we're less likely to destroy evidence. We're going to collect it. We're going to do it sequentially. We're going to do it right.
So, would you go in and go along the walls?
I would work around the exterior of the room. Yeah. Whatever pattern you want to do, it's not super critical as long as you just want to photograph and collect in a way that I'm not going to inadvertently step on, kick, or destroy something. So if that means that I go around the exterior of the room and I spiral my way in, that's fine. Or it could be that I just work across the room. Either way is fine. I just want to make sure I'm being methodical and that I'm doing it in a way that's not going to destroy or disturb evidence. Now, here's the thing. As I'm photographing these items, remember I asked the detective to place the markers down in the room. What if as I'm photographing something, I see something that he or she did not see? Does that mean I just don't take a picture of it? No. I'm gonna grab him, say, Detective Johnson. Did you see this here? Oh, no. So bring it to their attention, and then we're going to photograph it to make sure that we capture it, and then they can collect it. So just because they haven't marked it doesn't mean you shouldn't photograph it, because you should bring it to their attention and take a picture of it. Again, what is the thing? When in doubt, take a picture anyway. Dale, you have a question?
Yeah, when we're going to take the entrance, when we go to the corners of the room, are we taking a picture of the
We're just doing an overview of the scene.
How many pictures per corner?
Depends on the size of the room. The larger the room, the more pictures. I can't give you a hard and fast room.
And then
If it's a small room, one picture would do it from each corner.
and then we go in on specifics.
After I've done the four cornering, then I'm photographing the individual items.
Okay, now do the corners include the ceiling or the ceiling?
Yes.
It's separate.
No, it's part of the four cornering process. The ceiling is part of the four cornering process.
So if you were shooting this room from the corner you're standing in, how many pictures?
That's a good question. This is a really big room, right? So my little mock scene is small.
Right.
But if I was shooting this entire big room, this room is 30 feet across, 30 feet wide, and 15 feet tall. So then Joanna asked the question, if I was photographing this whole room in reality, if I was standing in this corner, I would probably take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at a minimum. Because this is such a huge room, I would take at least 6 photos from each corner. If I was in a small kid's bedroom, like a 10 by 10 bedroom, I could probably take 1 from each corner, maybe 2. If you have vaulted ceilings in a house, okay, now it's going to take more because now I have to point up at the ceiling. So it just depends on the size of the room.
Would it collect it that high up?
Yes. Yes. Think about if I were beating someone with a baseball bat and I'm swinging the bat back and forth, we get what's called cast off, which are trails of blood that go along the ceiling. We get blood on the ceiling all the time. Or bullet holes. This is especially true. We're going to talk about this in a few minutes about self-inflicted gunshot wounds. In most cases, the bullet hole is up in the ceiling because the person typically points the gun upwards. So now we have a bullet hole up in the ceiling. So we get a lot of stuff on the ceiling.
So when you photograph something on the ceiling, you can't use tape to secure the scale up there.
All right. So we have scales that are stickers. I put it right next. I stick it to the. I stick it right next to it on the ceiling.
So you have like a long pole sticking out.
What the last? Remember we said before when we're taking items with us, what needs to go in our crime scene kit? A ladder. That's why. And we have scales that are there. It's a sticker. So you put it on and you just stick it against the ceiling. Good questions, you guys. All right, so here's an example. Ron, would you grab the lights real quick? These are a couple of photos from one of my colleagues. This is, again, Dave Craven, who teaches our fingerprint class. I'm only going to show you, I'm not showing you all the photos. I'll let Dave show you guys those. This particular scene was a young man driving a pickup truck, lost control of the pickup truck. Pickup truck hit a light pole. It flipped over, and then it burst in flames, and then he burned to death inside the truck. I am not going to show you his body or the truck. Dave will show you those if you take his fingerprint class. But I want to show you a couple of photos from the scene that demonstrate the concept of long range, medium range, and close up. Right? So, for example, here's a photo that's in a long range photo. There are there's four different pieces of evidence in this photo that are relevant. We have the bumper from the truck. We have the light pole that the truck hit. And then in the background, you can see there's two evidence markers right there on the sidewalk. This is a great long-range photo, because what does it show? It shows spatial relationship of those items. In particular, it shows the location of these two items, which you cannot even tell what they are yet, right? So here's another long-range photo. Now this is about 20 feet away from items A and B. Right, so here's a long range. Right, this is now more of a mid-range photo, again 5 to 10 feet away. Then we move just a little bit closer. Again, remember, you get the concept, right? From outside in. Now we move just a little closer. Again, more of a mid-range photo from 5 feet away. Now we can actually start to see what these are. They're skid marks. They're tire marks. Right? Now we can see item number A, which is a tire mark. Here's another close-up. What's the one thing missing in this photo I really wish had been there? It should have a scale, especially with a tire mark. There's one thing missing in this photo. There should be a scale. And then there's item B. Again, what's the one thing missing? The scale. But going back, what if all I showed you was this photo? Now you can tell it's a tire mark. But remember before I said sometimes the location of an item can be just as important as what it is, right? Rocky, grab the lights for me real quick. So in our little crime scene we have here, move the gun back close to his hand, which is where it was. So we have dead Bob on the ground here, and we have a gun right next to his hand, and he's got a bullet wound in his head. The fact that the gun is right there next to his hand, is that relevant? Of course it is. It's not just that it's a gun, it's the fact that it's right there next to his right hand. That's especially true if we know that Bob is right-handed. It would have been a big problem if we found out from Bob's family that he was left-handed. Also, we have a cartridge casing in the scene, right? Now, we might have a small problem with the location of the cartridge casing, because where's the cartridge casing? Way back in that corner. Now remember, let me grab the gun here. When most people shoot themselves, typically they will hold the gun under their chin or in their mouth. Most firearms eject the cartridge cases to the right. So if I were to hold the gun, so we can imagine that if Bob did shoot himself, if he shot himself and fell backwards, because the body's in this location here, if he was holding the gun here and fired, the cartridge casing should not actually be in that corner. It really probably should be in that corner. Now, it could have ended up in that corner. It's important to understand that when a cartridge case comes out, if it hit a wall, it could have deflected that way. And so one of the things we will do in the crime lab is we will do what's called an ejection pattern reconstruction. So we can set up a crime scene similar to this and fire the gun and see if the cartridge cases do in fact end up in that corner. But if I fire this gun 15 times, holding it in the orientation that he held it in, and all the cartridge casings are over here, the fact that that cartridge casing is in that corner is suspect. It probably means that the gun was either held here, potentially it could have been held up against his chest, in which case it could have ejected in that corner and skedaddled over into that corner. But the point is, sometimes the location is just as important as what it is. Right? Yeah, the magazine's not even in the gun. You know what I've never seen in a self-inflicted gunshot wound? I've never seen a person shoot themselves, take the magazine out, drop it over there, and then bleed to death. All right? Now, it is important to understand, with self-inflicted gunshots, even ones to the head, people do not always die right away. I want you guys to know that. There have been cases where a person has held the gun under their chin, they have fired, it has literally blown half of their jaw off, but that bullet did not go up into their brain. And so they are alive. And we've had people at that point who change their mind, and they will dial 911. Or we've had people at that point that then shoot themselves a second time. So I do want you to know, again, there are odd situations that do occur.